know the feeling, so much stuff and nothing to wear.
So we decided to get rid of lots of that stuff. This is huge.
This is humongous.
Look at those bags. There must be hundreds of shoes in it.
Only clothes go in these cages.
Okay.
With the face.
Ach, hier, da ist. Ja.
Oh, there's a similar one.
Yeah, look.
I'll put it together.
Pull it out. Let me see the other one.
Matches.
It matches.
This individually or the whole bag?
The books go into, see those bins go big, don't they? They go right in that box. See that box right there?
And the DVDs?
The books go in there, and
Yeah.
DVDs go in the orange case. We do a lot of work in here.
Yeah, especially now. Is it more busy now? Busier because of the holidays?
We busy all year round.
All year round?
This thing don't stop.
Okay. Yeah, people need stuff. Okay, over there.
DVDs go right away in there. Oh, that thing, that orange case right there. Right here. Yeah, that's the orange.
Okay, so now we have.
Clothing, variety, mixed clothing.
Yeah. I think we're all set so far. And we're back again. Now, this was quite an experience. Or let's put it this way, one man's trash is another man's treasure. However, let's talk why we're really here. Hip flexors. I have a story for you, a little bit of simple anatomy, and I will answer one of the most important questions. But before we dive in, let me show you really quick 3 of our favorite hip flexor exercises. Picture this, it's the end of a long workday and you feel kind of sluggish, low in energy, your body is tired and your lower back is stiff and tight. And on the way home you think, I should do some fitness, maybe this will help. And you remember you saw this video a while ago about abdominal work where the person promises you a six-pack by doing those exercises twice a week for like 3 minutes. That's already the first warning sign. Now, At home, you do your research, you find a video, you set everything up, and you hit the start button. Your knees are bent, your heels are on the floor, you have this arch in your lower back, and you still feel this pain and stiffness throughout the midsection. Second warning sign. Now, your shoulders are on the floor, and you bring your hands to the side of your forehead because the person just told you not to interlock the fingers behind your head to keep the neck muscles out of the game, which is good. Now, the first exercise is a sit-up. The person on the screen looks fabulous and the movement is smooth and you think, I can do the same. But then you realize already with the first sit-up, it's not as easy as you think to lift your upper body all the way up. With the second sit-up, it gets even harder to lift the upper body up and you need the movement of your legs to do so. Now, with the third one, you get the message from your lower back telling you what on earth are we actually doing. And with the fourth sit-up, let's not even go there because I do not want to repeat what goes on in your mind and you give up. The problem is, if you sit all day in front of a computer behind your desk, of course your hip flexors and the muscles of your lower back are overused, tight and stiff. The muscles in the neighborhood, for example the abdominals, are weak. And the opposite players, the antagonist of the hip flexor, the glutes, are inactive. And you need them for your hip flexion and hip extension. Now, the solution is, if you want to exercise, start with a nice warm-up. Number 2, why start with a sit-up? Start with regular crunches. And number 3, if you want to target your hip flexor, go for a modified version first. And I'll show you a few examples in a moment, like dead bugs or heel taps or one leg lifts. But for now, let's stop here for a moment and let me introduce just a little bit about hip flexor anatomy so you know where they are and what they actually do. Now, let's talk about hip flexion first. And what we basically mean by that is to move your leg in front of your body. Or when you sit, to bring your knee higher up towards your chest. Or when you're on the floor, to lift your legs and or your upper body off the mat. When fitness people talk about hip flexion, they like to refer to one particular muscle group, the iliopsoas, which consists, by the way, out of 2 muscles, the psoas major and the iliacus. However, in real life, for example, when you lift your leg up and you play a little bit with internal and external rotation, you add more and more muscles to it. Or when you lift your knee up, not only the iliopsoas has to work very hard, also your rectus femoris, one of your quadriceps muscles. By the way, the only one that crosses 2 joints, the hip joint and the knee joint. Or the sartorius muscle, which starts on the upper outer part of your pelvis, and then like a seatbelt crosses over your quadriceps group, goes below the knee and is attached on the tibia. Or the TFL, which starts at the same spot as the sartorius, but in this case runs down on the outside of your leg, is also attached below the knee. All 3 muscles will help, but there is a twist to it. They only can help when you lift your thigh bone up to approximately 90 degrees. Because of the anatomical positioning, they get so tight they cannot add more force to it, so the iliopsoas has to work very hard. So I just mentioned the iliopsoas consists out of 2 muscles. The psoas major, which starts in the lower back, from the vertebrae T12 down to L5. It runs down in front of the pelvis to the upper part of your thigh bone, where we have a little bump on the inside of the femur called the lesser trochanter. So you heard me saying psoas major. We also have a psoas minor, but this one is more in charge of trunk flexion. But the next one is important, the iliacus. It starts in front of your pelvis on the iliac crest, so the upper lip. The iliac fossa runs down, crosses the hip joint, fuses together with the psoas major, becomes one tendon, and is then attached on that little bump I just mentioned, the lesser trochanter. So, to explain the function of the iliopsoas is super easy. Hip flexion, hip stabilization, it adds a little bit to external rotation and helps to keep the femur in the socket. Okay, there was a lot of information in a short period of time, I get it. But now let's move on and we'll show you a few great hip flexor exercises. But before, we have to set it up first. I want you to make sure your abdominals are engaged at all times. So even better, have the feeling your belly button is pulled down, so the abdominals press against the organs press against the lumbar spine. And by the way, this is also what we call creating an airbag effect. You know, like an airbag we have in a car. This will help you to maintain stabilization throughout your lumbar spine. And if you're a beginner or you have lower back issues, additionally, you can also slide your hands underneath your tush.